Alright guys, so to continue from our chapter 5 lesson, this is 5.4, factoring trinomials. So the general form of trinomials is ax squared plus bx plus c, where the leading coefficient a is can't equal 0. And we're going to look at example where the leading coefficient is equal to 1, where it's not equal to 1. Generally, the trinomials that has a leading coefficient that is equal to 1 is easier to factor than the one that with the coefficient larger than 1. You probably learned this at one way, more than one way to factor in your previous class. Using the diamond method, the box method, whichever method that you learn. However, every single factoring, problem that you have to do in this class or any method you use is going to involve some guess and check or some just try and error. And that's what we're going to do in this video here. I'm going to show you guys how to factor this by kind of like backtracking or working backwards or reverse engineer sort of type of that. In the previous video, we look at how to factor using the GCF method and then the grouping. In this lesson, we'll look at the try and error method, which is mainly factoring trinomials. So just kind of give us a little bit of background where we're at. Up to this, well, in 5.1, 5.2, we learned how to multiply trinomials, and that is using the FOIL method. We got the first, inner, and outer. So that becomes 2x, x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6, and then the middle terms that just combine to become 5x plus 6 right there, right? So, and then same thing here, we can multiply this as well. So that's 6x squared minus 12x plus 2x minus 4. So that becomes 6x squared minus 10x minus 4. When we go from left to right here, we are multiplying to get the polynomial, okay? But when we actually go backwards, so the reverse order is by factoring, right? So we take these trinomial, we have to kind of break that up into its factor and write that as a product. So the reverse order or the reverse direction is more difficult, and that's what we're gonna do in this lesson, okay? But one thing we want to keep in mind is that when we do this here, there's a few hints here and there or things that we want picked up and help us factoring quicker. And I just want to point out that if we go backwards, as you can see, the 6 here, right? The 6 is a product of these two last constant. And then the x squared is the product of the first two term, right? So the 6 is 2 times 3, and then the x squared is the x times x. And then over here, in this problem here, the 4, the negative 4 is the 1 times negative 4, right? Right there. And then the 6x squared is the 3x and then the 2x, right? So that's something that we want to keep in mind when we factor in this and doing the try and error method. And as far as the middle term goes, this will take us some time to get better at seeing this here, this two middle terms here. And we got that. So that would take some practice, right? There's no really shortcut for this at all when it comes to factoring. You have to do a lot of this and then gain a little bit insight regarding how to factor this here. So let's start with an easy example. We got x squared plus 6x plus 8. Okay, so we're saying that if this trinomial was to factor, okay, if this was to factor, okay, it's going to be factored into 2 binomial times 2 binomial. Okay, so we're going to say that, okay, if it factors, then it will be, then it will be a product of 2 binomials. Okay, so that's what we're saying. If it was to factor, okay, well, if it was to factor, we notice that the first term here, the x squared, need to be the product of the first two thing right there, the first two term, and that can be broken to x times x, because x times x is x squared. And the last number here, 8, that needs to be a product of these two last number here when we're going to add to that part there. So 8, you know, we can think of 8 as 8 times 1, you know, as 2 number, or 4 times 2, or 2 times 4, or negative 2 times negative 4. So there's more than one possibilities of factors that multiply to get 8. But what goes there is the middle term, and we have to keep an open mind with middle term. So if I try 8 and 1, okay, that will give me 8. But then when I do the FOILing in my head, I don't get 6x out. Okay, so if I check here, if I do the math, I get x times 8 is 8x, and I get 1 times 1x is just gonna be x. So when I add these two terms, I get 9x. So that's not the 6x I want. So that's the part it's gonna take a while, is being able to do the mental math in your head to get the middle terms worked out nicely. So going back to this, if I want 8, I can try 4 and 2, and then since 8 is positive, I can do plus there and plus there, and then when I do the checking part, I can take x times, you know, I said 4x for this one, and then that's 2x, so that's 6x. So that's the middle terms, so that's checked out. Okay, so our answer is x plus 2 times x minus x plus 4. So that's our answer. Okay, so this factor into x plus 2 and then x plus 4. So we'll take some practice until we get the middle terms correctly. And let's try one where the coefficient is larger. Okay, so we're saying, okay, well, if this was to factor, then it's going to factor into a binomial times a binomial. Okay, and our first term is 4x squared. Okay, well, 4x squared, we can say, well, that we can break down to 2x and 2x, or we can say 4x squared is x and 4x, right? It's got to be one of those two, right? And then the phi, to get the phi, the last constant, we can say that's phi and 1. Or that's negative phi and negative 1. Multiply to get positive phi. But since there's a positive 12 in the middle, we probably won't go with a negative. So this is where you have to make kind of a gamble. Do I go with this one first, or do I go with the x and 4x first? So I'm just going to go with the 2x and 2x, okay? And see if that's gonna work out. So if I say 2x there and 2x there to get the phi, I'm gonna do a phi there and a 1 there, and I'm just gonna do the mental math in my head real quick. So the mental math is this here, is this 2x times phi plus the 1 times 2x. What is that gonna give us? 10x and then 2x. Okay, so that gave me 12x. So that's checked out. Okay, so both this is positive. So there it is. We got it, right? We got the answer. We got the factor. All right, we got 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 1 times phi is phi. So that's the first and the last term. And the middle term is 2x times phi is 10x, and then 1 times 2x is 2x. So that add together to get 12x. So that is our factor. Okay. Let's do a couple more. That has some negative. Okay, that has a little more possibility. Okay, we can do this one. This one, we have 3x squared, and we have 28, okay? So this 3x squared, we can say that's just 3x and x. So we can say only one possibility, 3x and x. 28 has several different options. So 28, we can say 4 and 7. What else make 28 here? 14 and 2, and then 28 we can have 28 and 1. So I guess 3 different possibilities for 2 factors multiplied to get 28. So we're just gonna have to guess, and the middle terms is negative 20, so chances are we might have to use some, you know, negative 7, maybe negative 4, something like that, right? So let's give that a try. Okay, so far I've been good at guessing. I haven't made a mistake yet, so I want to make a mistake in this one. Okay, I want to just guess wrong. All right, so I'm gonna go with 14 and 2. Okay, 14 and 2. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna put 14 there. I'm gonna put 2 there, And I'm gonna make this one negative. I'm gonna make that one positive to make oh, actually, I both have to be negative because we want a positive 28. So let's make that negative as well. So let's check it. 3x times negative 2, and then negative 14 times x. So that gave us negative 6x, negative 14x. Why? I want this to be a wrong guess. I don't know how I got the guess wrong. So let me just do this again. Okay, I wanted this to be the wrong guess. Okay, so 3x, x. All right. So if I'm going to do the wrong guess, I'm going to do 7, 4. Let's say I put a 7 there, I put 4 there. Both of them has to be negative. Okay, let's check the middle terms. Okay, let's check. All right. So 3x times negative 4. So that becomes negative 12x. And then negative 7 times x, so that's negative 7x. So we get negative 12x, and then minus 7x, so that's negative 19x. So that doesn't work out. So this 3x minus 7 times x minus 4 doesn't add up to the negative 20x in the middle. So this is wrong. Okay. So we're going to have to guess again. So let's go with my guess earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and try the negative 14 and then negative 2 there to make 28. So we're going to check the middle term, check. 3x times negative 2. Oh, we don't have a minus, just 3x. And then we have negative 14 times x. So that's just negative 6x minus 14x. So that's negative 20x. So that worked. So this is all correct factor here. So it will take some practice to guess the correct factor when you do this here. The more you do, the better you get it. But generally, the harder ones are the one with the larger coefficient. You know, hence this right here where the coefficient is not equal to 1. Okay. All right. Let me know if you guys have any questions on Zoom.